Put on your jelly bracelets and your cool graffiti coat. We're talking 80s fashion. Hit it. It was the 1980s. Moon boots were in, leg warmers were the rage, and neon colors and shoulder pads were all over the place. I'm your host, Jerry D, with another episode of Totally Rad Christmas, the podcast that talks all things Christmas in the 80s. Toys, movies, specials, music, and fads. If it was gnarly during Christmas in the 80s, we got it covered. Now, joining me is a very special guest. You'll know her as the host of the Tubular Fashion Speaks podcast, Charlyn Lewis. Charlyn, how's it going?
Hi, how are you? I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing great too. Thanks for asking. Oh man, how's the week been treating you?
Pretty good. Glad to get through a week. It seemed like it was a long week for me, but it's nice to be on the other end of that at the weekends.
Yes. Oh, I completely agree. I'm very lucky in that we're only open about 9 months out of the year. And so as soon as we close, we get like 6 weeks of vacation. And so I'm currently in the middle of that. So that's really nice.
Yes, that is nice. I actually will be off for the next couple of days. So I get like a little break.
Sweet.
But yeah, it's nice to have some time off, like to kind of like, especially my son, and he was still homeschooling up until last week. It was his first time going back to hybrid. So yeah, he now is doing 2 days a week in school, and he's home for homeschooling the other days. So we're like figuring that out because it's been like over a year since he's been off, you know, for during the pandemic. So yeah, just making our way through that.
I definitely understand that. My daughter, my oldest daughter, just went back to in-person full time, and trying to navigate that. And then I'm staying at home watching the two little ones. I tell you, I'm not trained for that. So trying to teach them is so hard.
It's a lot.
It is a lot. It is.
You know, my brother, we went to visit him like some months back. And watching, my brother has 3 sons, and watching them all like navigate homeschooling, and his wife is a teacher. So watching all of that happen, I'm like, I'm so happy I just have one. I thought I was like stressed with my one. Watching like multiple things all going on virtually at the same time, I was like, well. I guess
for real.
Can't complain.
For real, yeah. It's definitely been a learning experience. I've only been with them a week now, and it's gosh, they know how to push all my buttons, don't they?
Yes.
Little ones do that, but
yes. And I have a new teenager.
Ooh.
So I have to constantly make sure he's still online. Like, are you in class? Okay, just check. Making sure he's not on his phone or on YouTube or something like that, you know?
Oh yeah, and just faking you out. Yeah, I totally get that. My daughter did that like one day, and after we like just drilled into her so hard, and finally she was like, okay, I'll never do that again, you know.
Right.
It's like, that's right, you won't.
Like one good time.
Yeah, that's all it took. But we're here to talk 80s fashion. So what's your experience in general with fashion, and especially fashion in the 80s?
Well, as far as the 80s, I mean, I was alive for most of the 80s. I was born in 1980.
Me too.
So I got to experience all of the, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm October.
February here.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but so I got to experience all of these fashion trends, and I have definitely worn a lot of them. So yeah, just go throughout the years. Obviously, when I was at that in those stages, it was up to my mom what I was wearing.
Right.
But it's crazy how a lot of that stuff comes back. Like a lot of the fashion trends from the 80s are already back around.
I was noticing that because I'm not huge into fashion, but I love to watch Project Runway. And there was several things
Mm-hmm.
that I recognized. Like I know that, I'd see the peplum or some of the
Yeah.
ruching like at angles and all sorts of things. And I'm like, I know what they're doing there.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I
I
felt a
love
little
Project
bit.
Runway too.
Yeah. Oh, but yeah. Guilty pleasure.
Yes.
Don't go spreading that around. No, I'm just kidding.
That's okay. I think they're starting a new season, by the way.
I think they are. Yeah.
Yeah.
We usually wait till there's like 3 or 4 already backed up, and then we'll start.
Same, same. I like the binge.
Me too. Yeah, yeah. This whole week to week thing is I don't know how
Yeah.
we did it in the 80s because it's
I
for the birds now.
know. I know. It's definitely a lot different than how we used, and that's how we used to watch TV. It's the norm, obviously, but
Hmm.
now it's so different how we consume content now. And I
Yeah.
can't even imagine like oh, I have to wait till Thursday at 8 or
Right?
whatever.
Oh man. It's yeah, for real.
Yeah.
So I'm very similar like you, like I said, I was born in 1980. So I went through a lot of it. Now I also didn't really get to pick a lot of stuff for most of that decade.
Right.
It was pretty
Mm-hmm.
much what my mom wanted to dress me in. I remember lots
Mm-hmm.
of neon clothes, like lots of neon.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I think a couple of times we were pretty lucky and we got to have like a little shirt with like Batman on it or something. But most of the
Right.
time, most of the time, it was some sort of weird print that just, nowadays you look back and you're like, oh, I don't know about that.
I know. Like, there's a lot of times that I ask my mom, like, so why that though? Why did you choose that for me?
That's yeah, that's exactly right. And my mom liked to match us all as well.
Oh,
So
really?
yeah, there were 3 boys, and so we all
Hmm.
matched.
Yeah.
I she says it so that like when we were somewhere, she
Hmm.
would be able to find us easier. I think she just liked to look at us like little dolls that she could just play dress up with personally.
Yeah. I could see that because I got lucky because I have a brother.
Hmm.
So we could get similar, but not exactly the
But not,
same.
yeah.
We did have similar things sometimes where he's 2 years younger than me.
Hmm.
So sometimes he passed me in height very early on, so there
Right.
were definitely times when we were about the same height that they would buy us similar things. But yeah, I did luck out where that was concerned just because of the us being different genders.
You know what though, it was the 80s, so there was lots of that. I don't think it
Yes.
really would have mattered. I mean, you look at bands like
Yeah.
Motley Crue and all them, they were wearing the super tight, with the makeup and everything. So I mean, I think
Uh-huh.
you would have been all right, but
Yeah, I think so too.
for real. Did you get clothes for Christmas when you were little?
um I think that didn't start until I was probably getting to like 12 or 13.
Gotcha.
Except for maybe from like grandmother or like from my grandparents. Um, but other than that, we definitely it was mostly toys for Christmas.
Mhm.
Except for the now that I think except for pajamas,
Oh,
because we
nice.
always got the Christmas pajamas every year. And so but when we were younger though, my parents they would just toys. It was all toys.
That's cool. See, we always, of course, most of it was toys, but there was always one box, and it was always like that rectangular white box,
Yes.
and so you knew it was clothes. And of course, you'd
Uh-huh.
open it up, and it was usually like things that we needed, like dress pants or
Mm-hmm.
slacks,
Yeah.
something like that, a nice shirt. I don't know.
Yeah.
And so we always hated that present. That was like the one present that as soon as you saw it, you knew exactly what it was.
Yeah. At that age, you really just don't want clothes. That's like it's very boring to us as
Mhm,
children. And even when my son was younger and my dad, so his grandfather
mhm.
would get him clothes and stuff, and I would have to like really like almost coach him to
Yeah.
not be like bored, look
Yep.
very appreciative. Please, yes, it's just clothes, but if you need these clothes, you're always gonna. I have to like really give him a pep talk.
Yeah, and that's what we do too. It's whenever we're going somewhere to a grandparents or whatever, it's like, okay, now it's they wanted to give you something, so it's as
Yeah,
long as they wanted to give you, you have to be appreciative, even if you don't like
right.
what they gave you.
Yes, because kids like to tell the truth.
Oh yeah,
They'll
they
be
do.
very, they'll be very honest if they don't like it.
Yeah, there's usually no filter there. So
Right.
yeah, I remember a lot of corduroy slacks growing up.
Oh yes, yes.
Hmm.
I had I had a corduroy skirt, pants for
Nice.
sure, and I also had a corduroy like jumper,
Oh,
but
okay.
like a skirt jumper that, or like a jumper dress, I should say. So yeah, I did a lot of corduroy in my younger days.
I guess it was a thing because several of my
Hmm.
friends have said the same thing. So it must have been at least something in the 80s that, people loved. Oh, get them a corduroy thing,
Yeah,
the overalls or,
yeah, yes, I definitely can remember a lot of corduroy. I honestly I forgot about that, but I specifically remember the jumper dress, but it definitely was like I'm not sure if my brother had much corduroy though. I'm sure he had pants, but I don't that might have just been it for him.
I gotcha. I usually had polos, lots of polos that were lots of horizontal stripes were pretty
Yes.
popular. And
Hmm.
of course, the shorts were always really short,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
and the socks were always like knee length,
Yeah, with the colored
with
stripes
the
around the
stripes.
socks.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Is it bad? I kind of miss the stripes.
I know it's not because me actually on my podcast, me and my co-host, who is my cousin,
Mhm.
we were talking about that because we used to call them party socks. I don't know if that was regional or not,
I've never
but
heard that, so I
yeah,
don't
so it
know,
must have
but
been like a regional thing. But like the when we were younger, the colored striped socks were called party socks.
party socks,
Um,
nice. I like that.
so yeah, but we were reminiscing about that actually the other day when we were recording because we had saw something on a recent runway where they did have striped socks. So it reminded us of that. Yeah, something else that might be coming back soon.
Oh wow. Hey, I'll buy a pair for sure.
Yes.
Yeah, those I don't know what it is. It's just like you see them and right away you think 80s. It's just one
Hmm.
of those things like bell bottoms are so tied to the 70s. For me, those socks are like just
Right.
so tied to the 80s. But
Yeah.
this runway, so we're talking about some trends from 1986, and I also sent
Yeah.
you a couple of like just J.C. Penney's commercials just to kind of see like the overall like what everyday people would wear rather than some of these high fashion kind of things.
Yeah.
Um, this one, yeah, as I kind of said earlier off screen, it was this was all over the place. I mean, I don't even know
It
like
was.
where to start because there was so many different things. I mean, they use like red as a neutral, which
Yeah. Yeah, it was like there were a lot of things that I am seeing again to like today in
Mhm.
the present, but yeah, like I would say the thing that stands out the most is the big shoulders.
The shoulder pads,
Big
yeah.
shoulder pads, yes. Like
Hmm.
I noticed a lot of that and that reminded me like that was that time and that they even mentioned in a video about the soap
Yeah,
opera
yeah.
Dallas and
Dallas, yeah.
um
Same thing in
yeah, so
Dynasty is another one. Like all
Dynasty.
those
Yeah.
shows, I mean, it was like these powerful women in like satin gowns with the big shoulder pads.
Hmm. And like really big, like the collars were really pointy and like
Hmm.
sharp. So yeah, that stood out the most for me. And yeah, it also because I've watched runway shows a lot, especially
Hmm.
online, but I noticed the models' walks were like a little different. Like
Hmm.
it's just the way the runway show was a little different. It's just like a different style, it's just it's many decades later.
Feels after
Centuries.
COVID feels like it.
It does. I was a year, okay. But yes, I just noticed that and it was like a lot of the groups coming down all together, like a group
Yeah,
of
that was something different. I did notice that. And
mhm.
sometimes they might be wearing like either the same or very similar tops, but like with different
Yeah,
bottoms.
yeah. I noticed that
I don't
too.
recall I've ever seen that before.
Me neither. I mean, it's like I guess I'm sure it's happened, but it was a lot then. It was more than that. Like I never realized that that's how it was then. Like there were a lot of that where they were wearing like very similar outfits coming down the
Hmm.
runway. Yeah,
Yeah,
that
that
was
was strange. The other thing I really noticed was belts. Lots of belts, like big,
hmm
like either patent
yeah,
leather or that kind of thing, or that
yeah,
faux leather where they would like tuck it or tie it, kind of twist it under
yeah,
I don't know if I'm
yeah,
describing it well, but
yeah. I know exactly what you mean. It would be like kind of tied on the side. It
yes,
was
yeah,
like an
that's
extra
exactly.
long belt. Yeah. Yeah,
I
I and the big buckles
the
too,
big
like
huge
this.
buckles. Yeah, yeah. I'm
Uh-huh.
definitely guilty of the tying thing.
I can't remember if I actually had that before, but I remember that as a style. Oh, you know what? That just reminds me of they used to have something that was kind of like not the same, but it was like a nod to that in a belt, but they would do it with shirts and stuff like that too, where
Yeah, I
they would
do
have
recall
like a
that.
little like where you could slide your shirt in and it would be on
Yeah,
off to the side. I feel like that
yeah.
was kind of like a nod to that same style.
It was definitely, just watching these, it's like, oh yeah, I mean, there's something like quintessentially 80s about it, but at the same time, it was it seemed for some of them, it just seemed like oh yeah, like the cloche hats, the little knit cloches and stuff. It was like, okay,
Yeah,
that's from the 20s, but like for
yeah,
some reason they brought it
right,
back. And so it's like you
right.
said, the styles just keep coming back. So it's
Yes.
really, really interesting the way that they did that.
Yeah. And that's like one of the things that I really like a lot about fashion is that, while things go out of style and things come back in style, like, from year to year, it
Hmm.
eventually makes its way back. Like, you almost don't need to get rid of anything in your
That's
closet if
true.
it goes out of style one year, because you never know. You could just put that right back on again. Styles come back. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I like that a lot.
Or dress it up just a little bit differently, you know?
Right. Yeah, put your own little spin on it for like the now of things. Yeah.
Yeah. So that one stood out to me because I remember the cloches from some of those shows, the dynasties and all that, when they'd come in with that little knit hat and
Yeah.
big shoulder pads, and all that. But also the other one that really stuck out to me was like the shape design that they were talking about, where it really just it was almost like a bell or like triangular kind of a thing
Yeah.
that I mean,
I thought that was real interesting and like it's like real different. Something I didn't remember. Another thing I didn't really remember from back when I was younger. Obviously, it's,
right,
I
right,
wasn't really into like watching all the fashion shows at that time, but
right.
yeah, I thought that was very interesting too. Very different. And I mean, I guess you can see that come back in slightly different ways, but maybe not as specific.
Hmm.
But yeah, it was really interesting
And all in bright colors too. It was like a
for
neon
sure.
green.
Yes, neon, like all the highlighter colors.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Yeah, all the highlighter colors, and
Yep.
and that's also we watched a fashion show recently. It was Versace for
Hmm.
this summer and spring. It, it's all neon. It was like
Wow.
it started off with like navy, and then
Hmm.
after like maybe the first three or four looks, everything was like all neon colors. And I was like, wow, okay, this is the theme. This is, I guess, they're telling us what to do. Versace told us its neon colors are back. Okay.
Score.
Yeah. If you still have anything, yeah, your neon from back in the day, it's back.
I definitely don't. I think it definitely wouldn't fit me now. It might fit my
Yeah,
son though,
right,
so I
me
think it'd be all
neither.
right. But yeah, it was really just strange to see all that. And then the way that they would use the color, like in the color blockings, I also thought was very different than what is
Yes.
normally done, at least from what I've seen on TV. It just like the shapes that they would block them in were just very
Hmm.
unusual. Sometimes they were very
Yeah.
like 90-degree angles with all over the place, things like that. I mean,
Hmm.
it was very odd for the color blocking. I mean, again, I guess it wasn't odd at the time, but now, you look back and it's just one of those things like, what are you guys doing?
Right. And it was always really random. The color blocking
Hmm.
shapes were always, it was rare that you saw like exactly the same thing in a different design. Like the color block, there was no rhyme or reason. It was
Hmm.
just, I guess that was just part of the style. And that lasted on into the 90s.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Really?
Yeah. Hmm.
Huh. I guess you're right. I mean, like even on the show, I go up to 93 because you can still see a little bit of the bleed over from the
Yeah.
80s. So yeah, I
Hmm.
definitely get that. Um,
Yeah.
this show just was wild. I mean, I know it's like
Yeah.
more of a collection of shows or whatever, but
Yeah.
it was
Yeah, it was fun to see that uh how different and similar things are now.
Mhm.
But so yeah, there was, and I honestly the biggest takeaway was for me was just how a lot of the things that seem very, very 80s,
Mm-hmm.
we can recognize in a lot of designs today.
Nice.
So that really stuck with me a lot. I'm like, oh, okay. Like this does, while I'm watching this, it seems very vintage, very
Mm-hmm.
like peak 80s fashion. And then I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, there are a lot of these styles that are back, especially the shoulder pads and shoulders, like big shoulders and statement shoulders are definitely things that you see a lot on the runway.
Why do you think that is?
I think it's for impact. I mean, in my opinion, I think it's like the impact of it coming down the runway. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
whoa, look at that. Yeah, I think it's the wow factor.
Okay. Yeah, well, and I think the shoulder pads in general were kind of I mean, it was kind of just to emphasize like the power, right? Like they
Hmm.
were powerful women.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess especially nowadays, of course, we had the Me Too movement and all that stuff.
Hmm.
I mean, it really does kind of make sense. So, yeah, women are very powerful, and
Yeah.
so I can definitely see that. It's funny because yeah, I think about the shoulder pads, and to me, it's like, I don't know if I'd go there, but
Yeah.
I at the same time, it's like I remember like all these older, these ladies from the 80s that I thought were like just amazing and gorgeous and whatever, and
Hmm.
they wore the shoulder pads. So whatever
Right.
happened, it worked, I guess.
Yeah. And it didn't seem out of the ordinary or weird to us at that time.
Hmm.
I think done right, it really looks great.
Yeah.
To even just have like an embellished shoulder, even if you don't use or even to give the illusion of a shoulder pad. But I do think that it is interesting how when we're in it, it does it. It's just, it seems like, yes, this is what's in fashion. This is
Hmm.
what's now. And then when you're removed from it a couple decades, it's like, oh, okay, that's a little weird. Just a little weird when you look back at it. It doesn't, I don't know why that is.
Well, it seems like the power suits were very fashionable at the time. I mean, and
Hmm.
then you think of movies like Working Girl and
Yeah.
like that, and where again Melanie Griffith is like, and Sigourney Weaver were just these powerful women,
Yeah.
and so it makes sense that they'd have some sort of suit that would emphasize that. But
Right.
the thing that I always got from it, or the thing that always drew my attention, was the peplum at the bottom,
Yes. Yes.
which again is something that I think it goes back to like ancient Greece. Um,
I was wondering how far that goes back.
yeah.
And that peplum came back too. And that peplum has been back for a while. Actually, people, I don't know if I see it as much on the runway anymore, but it's still around for sure. I see clothes with peplums in the stores all the time. So
Hmm.
it's still a thing. But yeah, that made its way back around too. And I remember back then, at that time, like especially with my mom and grandmother, they used to watch soap operas all the time. So that's when I saw it the most.
Yeah.
Like the businesswoman, and
That's it.
that would be it. Like especially the more powerful, the more exaggerated everything in her style was.
Hmm.
So I do remember like a peplum and a shoulder pad. That was like normal if there was a powerful woman. That's like it was almost like this is how you know she's powerful.
That's right. Yeah. It was, yeah, that was like you keyed into that,
Hmm.
and it was always a skirt, to go with
Yes.
that outfit. It was never like a business suit with like pantsuit, it was
Right.
always the skirt to go with it. Nowadays, I mean, either one is fine. And,
Yes.
and I think you actually see more of women in, pantsuits, business, suits
Yeah.
with pants than you do with the skirt. And I mean, I think it actually works better, but you're right. At the time, it was
Yeah.
like, how do you want to portray them as feminine but still powerful, I guess?
Right.
And so let's
Yeah.
have a skirt. I mean, I don't know. I don't know fashion. I'm so it's like
Right. No, I know what you mean. I agree. I think that was like the way of like, okay, how can we illustrate this with clothing?
mhm,
And like you said, with the skirts and it's pants and skirts now, but I think we
right.
see more pants.
I think we do,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, and but I didn't really realize that it was always skirts back in the day until you said that. And I'm like, that it was just I can't even imagine seeing that like a woman in a like powerful suit with pants back at that time because they just never. It was very rare if we saw it at all.
Yeah, and I mean, like I'm thinking about movies like Baby Boom. I don't know if you remember Baby
Uh-huh.
Boom. Yeah,
Yes.
she same thing. She always wore the skirt with that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I mentioned Working Girl already, but yeah, it seems like every even in Scrooged, if you look at Scrooged, his
Oh,
the
right.
blonde girl, or his secretary as well, but also the
Uh-huh.
blonde, I don't know whatever she was, but that's rubbing his back.
Yeah.
Same thing. She's wearing that skirt. So it's like. I think that was like the thing. And
Yeah.
now they've moved on from that, which I'm glad they did because I like the
Yeah.
look of the pants better.
I do
Honestly.
too. I do too. And I'm someone who usually chooses pants over a skirt, but I do think when you have like those really embellished aspects of like a jacket or suit coat, I think that pants complement it better than a skirt, but it's just my opinion.
No, I completely agree. You're right. I think they do. One of the other things in this show that I thought was really interesting was the military look. I don't know if you remember.
Oh,
And they're
yeah.
like complete with brass buttons, and they had the buttons.
Right.
It was
It's very, I mean, I feel like I remember seeing that then, and it's like looking at it now, it's like it's very I guess what you would expect. It's very like, I don't know. I guess that's very much what I would expect to like, the military to look like. I don't know, quotes around that. But because it's not what we see now, but it's still like, I don't know. Yeah, it was pretty interesting.
There were some weird ones. Of course, you think about like that military, that kind of band look, and of course Michael Jackson and his that famous outfit he wore.
Uh-huh.
I mean
The
that.
famous leather jacket.
Yeah, I mean it's that kind of thing. It's very iconic.
Right.
And of course, now you don't really see a lot of people wearing stuff like that. Well, and of course you wouldn't.
Right.
I mean, it's been what, 40, 35, 40 years, something like that.
Right.
I know I hate saying that out loud, but
I know.
sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. It doesn't feel like it's been that long,
No, it
but
really
then it's like
doesn't.
time flies.
But yeah, for real. Today, my daughter, oh man, my daughter and my son were making old jokes about me all day long.
Oh
And
no.
like, Daddy, how many years have you lived? And so, I said, okay, it was
Uh,
1980, do the math. And so I told them,
right.
they're like, so 41. Like, you're old. I was like, thanks, baby.
Yeah. I get it like from my son, he's when I told him what year I graduated from high school, that was what I knew even when we were graduating back then. It was something that I can't remember who said it. Like if it was one of my teachers or somebody that like a family member. But they said like, you're always going to seem older than just because you graduated before the turn of the century.
Mm-hmm.
It's always sounds crazy, but even though like just saying 2000 versus 1998 is when I graduated.
Me too.
And
Yeah.
just that, like, it does sound so different, even though it's a difference of 2 years. It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
not even the 2000s. I was already grown and out there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy. But I mean, you think about the way the styles have changed over, of course, towards the late 80s, early 90s, we started getting into the grunge. So there was a lot more,
Yeah.
flannel, that kind of thing.
Yes.
Torn jeans were pretty big.
Yes.
Although I guess that was kind of a holdover from like the mid 80s.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say the torn jeans probably started in the 80s and then kind of like just kept going into the 90s, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, now they're everywhere. You see them all
Oh,
over the place.
yes. Yes, that came back in a major way. That's all you see anymore. Actually, that's a funny. Today, my son asked me for some ripped jeans. Because lately he's just been on a joggers only kind of person. He didn't want to wear any jeans at all, and he was just asking me today for some ripped jeans.
Oh,
That's our teens. They're
my parents
picking up
used
on
to.
those trends.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry.
My parents used to say, if you want ripped jeans, just bring me your jeans. I'll get some scissors.
Yes.
It's like, okay.
Yes. That's funny because that's so true. Like, I don't know if I had any ripped jeans then either. I don't
No,
think I did. I don't
no.
think I
My
had
parents
any.
wouldn't let us have it. And I remember
That's
like thinking
probably why I didn't.
Yeah, it's probably. And I just remember thinking
Probably.
like, oh, it's so cool, like so and so has these ripped jeans and they just look
Uh-huh.
awesome. And
Yeah.
yeah, no, wouldn't let me. Oh,
Yeah.
well,
I guess that's probably why I never did, because I'm pretty sure I didn't. I can't remember that in my uh younger years at all.
yeah, yeah,
Mm.
same here. But of course now I have a bunch, but
Right.
but some of those are just from playing with the little ones so often that now they're just
Right.
torn. It's like, oh,
Yes.
cool, save some
Just
money.
right. You're on trend now. Look
There
at
you go.
that.
Yeah.
Look how easy that is.
Yeah. So, folks, if you want some ripped jeans, just play with some little kids.
Yes.
No, don't do that. That sounds terrible. Uh, your own children. Play with your own children. How about that?
Right. Right.
um, no, I did like how there was a few trends I noticed. Chanel in particular seemed to pick up on like they used Madonna and I believe Sade and I think Tina Turner as like models for their shows. And
Okay.
so of course Madonna had that iconic look with like all the millions of bracelets on.
Yeah. And
And
then she would wear like a lot of for Madonna, a lot of like leather and tulle skirts.
yeah,
And yeah, she definitely kind of made her own lane in fashion and made it like more on trend. I feel like she's one, and I could be wrong, but she's one of the first people that I would see like making the tulle skirt very popular,
hmm,
and making girls want to wear that.
well, I know she popularized the bracelet thing, the like
Hmm.
she's credited as that. And so whenever and I think they were like gels or jellies, something like that. I think
Jellies.
jellies, right? Yeah.
Yes.
And you could buy like a million of them for like hardly anything. I remember
Mhm.
seeing those like everywhere, even in junior, I mean in elementary school, just all the girls had them. And those and the jelly
Yeah.
shoes as well. It was like that,
Yes.
tried to match,
I
that kind of thing.
remember having the jelly bracelets, and I don't know how we did it, but there would be different ways to like um, tie them up, or I don't know, like, or where when you had a whole bunch of them, there'd be all different designs that they would come up with to wear around your wrist. I don't remember how we did it, but we did.
Yeah, I remember that. I mean, as soon as you said that, I almost spit my tea out because I was like yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was like super popular. And same thing. I have no idea how it was done. I just remember
I
seeing it on
know.
like some of the most popular girls at school. Not that,
Yeah.
I mean, it's elementary school, so it's not like there's quote unquote popular girls, but the ones
Right.
that most of the that I don't know. I guess they invited more people to their parties or something. I don't know. But,
Right.
but yeah, it was like so that, and then of course Sade, musically, they kind of really invented the genre of like sophisticated pop or sophistopop kind of a thing,
Yeah.
and you could see that also in her style. I mean, it was like that a satin shirt with maybe like a little scarf,
Yes.
and the pants were kind of baggy, but still they'd kind of taper at the end. I mean, at the end, and the
Right.
high heels. I mean, it just, her hair was always slicked back.
Yeah. She kept that style. Like she kept a very like kind of simple and chic and
Mhm.
like clean lines. That was like she stayed with that pretty much throughout the decades.
Right.
But definitely in that time, like that was like I don't I would say that was when I feel like I heard Sade the most in the 80s.
Yeah.
Like my parents playing Sade. But she's pretty much stayed like it's either straight down hair or slick back in a
Yeah.
ponytail. That was pretty much it. And but yeah, I do like how she would pick like classic pieces and things that generally don't go out of style, but it was
Hmm.
still like it was still worked in the 80s. She was not out of place.
Yeah. And you think about the 80s, and of course you think yuppies and stuff like that. And so
Hmm.
and I hate to say it, but that's kind of, okay, how do I say this nice? That's kind of how she emulated their style, but elevated it, I suppose.
Right. I could see
So
that.
so
Yes.
it wasn't just like, and it was like classic, like almost like 40s, that kind of, and I could be wrong with my decade, but that kind of like classic
Mm-hmm.
Hollywood to me, but meets like the business of the 80s.
Right.
And so like I said, musically, at least she definitely elevated that to create like this sophisticated thing. And you can see that reflected in her style. And I really dig
Mm-hmm.
that. I like when, when they kind of create something new. So, bringing up Motley Crue again, they kind of created that whole style. And then from there, people really took that and ran with it.
Yeah.
Um, so and same thing, David Bowie, excuse me, he kind of took that androgynous kind of thing. And that was pretty common. I mean, you think of like
Mm-hmm.
Purple Rain,
Yeah.
in the beginning when they're like waiting for Prince to start and they're just going back and forth and people have like the makeup, all of,
Yeah.
the like Ziggy Stardust and stuff like that. I mean, it's just,
Right.
so I love it when artists will take something like that and combine it, not just musically, but stylistically in their wardrobe and like their whole persona and demeanor. And I really enjoy stuff like that.
Yes, me too. And I think even Prince is and David Bowie are very good examples of that too. And like Prince, one thing I would remember about him is that like um, ruffly shirts
Yes.
and how he would make that like more of a statement than it even was. So he would just go larger than life with it,
Hmm.
with the ruffles coming out of like his whatever jacket he would
Everywhere. Yeah.
chose. Yeah, so I like he right. And so yeah, I feel like he definitely like would kind of push that, elevate like a certain style.
And he made it like sexy. I mean,
Hmm.
it was like a thing, It's like,
Right.
I mean, if I put on a ruffled shirt, I mean, no, there's no way. But like for Prince to, I mean, it was like wow, And of course
Right.
he had that purple jacket that he's pretty
Hmm.
famous for. Um, but what I always thought was hilarious was that his drummer, Bobby Z, also dressed the same
Hmm.
way, and it just didn't work.
Yeah.
It didn't work for him
Yeah,
like it
it's
did for Prince.
you're right. I never thought of that, but you're right. Like it's his thing,
Yeah,
and everybody can't pull it off. And
yeah.
that's I feel like people tried, but it really was just his lane. You kind of have to just let him have that. That was he because he made it look so great, but it wouldn't work on everyone.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, I think one of the great things about Prince is that he could pretty much make just about anything work.
That's
And
true.
yeah,
That is true. And he would push the limits for as far as fashion.
yeah, he would. He definitely would.
Mhm.
And then the other Chanel, Tina Turner was the one that they modeled their stuff off after. And so
Mhm.
I remember it was kind of the mini skirt because Tina had those great legs that she would use to dance all the time,
Yes. Mhm.
and looked amazing doing it. And of course, she had I think it was at the time in the 80s. I recall maybe more. And maybe that's just my mind imagining, but I want to say more leopard print kind of.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hmm. And yeah, for Tina Turner, she, her style was almost anti 80s, if that, I don't,
Yeah.
because she didn't really pick like on trend things. And because there was a time where like not many, we wouldn't see that many women, like speaking of the skirt again,
Hmm.
um, a lot of times it would be knee length or
Yeah.
just under the knee. And
Hmm.
she always had on a mini skirt. I mean, and she should have because she looked great.
Yep.
But she would always wear mini skirts, a lot of fringe and glittery and yes, animal print. Like she would go there and with
Hmm.
fashion and there was no rules when it for her. Like she did not really stick closely to 80s trends all the time.
Hmm. And yet something about that made it like very 80s, which
Yeah.
is which is strange. I
Yeah.
think it's just the fact, and I guess this kind of just exemplifies the whole decade is really just people just did kind of whatever they wanted, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah. And like there are a lot of people that like even just like you said, it still seemed very 80s. So there are a lot of times when you would see like specifically Tina Turner or anyone else. But if you look back and they even though she wasn't following a specific 80s trend, it was like, oh yeah, that is the 80s. It's like that reminds me of
Hmm.
the 80s. Yeah.
Yeah. um so yeah, they based their line on that. There was I think for the Tina aspect there was a lot of browns and that kind of for their fall line, I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
Also, another one that really stood out to me was like the navies. It was like navy pieces, but with like
Mm-hmm.
one bracelet or like just an enormous some sort of accessory that was
Right.
like just bright colored, bright red, just some kind of
Yeah.
contrast with it. And that one really stood out to me as well because I
Yeah.
don't recall this trend particularly, but watching it, it was kind of cool. I kind of dug
Yeah.
it.
I don't remember it in that at that time either, but and it sticks out to me now because I do see it on the runway now.
Gotcha.
Um where you would have like, maybe some like have the model wearing all black, like it's an all black look, and then
Hmm.
there will be all the accessories will be one color, like a bright color, like
Oh,
maybe
okay.
lime green or maybe red, even though that's not a neon, but something like bright that will
Right.
stand out against like the simple silhouette and the color. But yeah, so I don't remember it from then either, but I have seen it lately on the runway.
Nice. And just
Mhm.
brings me back to your point about, that everything comes back. So
It does. Yeah, it's amazing how like a lot of like it's so 80s, and yet I see so many different things that we have in fashion today.
hmm Another one was the let's see, I'm trying to like the tunic style shirts.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I feel like tunics came back to because I see that in stores a lot. I think because leggings are very popular, and the more people were wearing leggings, I think they were creating shirts that went down lower.
Hmm.
They so that like bringing it back, I should say, not creating, but bringing the
Right.
tunic back. Once leggings were really like becoming super popular in like the past like 5 to 10 years or so.
hmm I mean, there was a lot of little things here and there that remind you, like you said, reminded me of stuff I've seen, but it like the way they went about it was just different, which
Yeah.
again makes sense. It was a few decades ago, but
Yeah.
it's almost like because the 70s, it was there was a lot of the same kind of thing. There was bell bottom. I mean, of course, bell bottoms were super popular. You had
Hmm.
the really tight shirts on men,
Hmm.
but that a lot of that kind of transferred over, at least for the first few years of the 80s. That I
Yeah.
think people were like so sick of it that they wanted to push the boundaries more.
Yeah,
I
I
mean
could
that's
see
what I
that.
got out of it. I don't know.
I could see that for sure. Like, because you're right. Like the difference in the 70s and 80s is very apparent. Like
Hmm.
it's like a most things did not make it from the 70s to the 80s.
Right.
Like after it's like, okay, we're done with that now. It was literally like they flipped a switch on 1980. I was like, okay, let's move on from that. But yeah, that's very interesting. And I never really thought about that, but it's until we were just talking about it now, how like 70s fashion is very specific, and it didn't bleed over like the 80s fashion that bled over into the 90s.
hmm Yeah. That and it seemed like they would take a lot of elements from other cultures as well
Hmm.
and incorporate that into things. So I mean, you think of like some Asian influence from maybe what is it called, the sash that they use, the obi or something like that. I think that's what it was called. So
Hmm.
that was like included. You might see that in print. Some sort of
Hmm.
like just Asian print. And then you
Yeah.
also see some African prints as well being incorporated into different things. And I think even like Incan and Peruvian prints being used as well. And so it seemed like
Yeah.
they were trying to cross over with some of these prints that they thought were really amazing and use them in a way that would work, in that kind of 80s setting.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I just thought that was really interesting because you think about nowadays, and whenever you see something like that, I mean, it's usually a lot more subtle, or, I mean, of course, nowadays with the cultural appropriation being a little,
Yeah.
kind of taboo,
Like you
you
have to
don't
be careful. Hmm.
exactly, yeah. So
Yeah.
definitely different time back then, but
Yeah. But I see, I feel like I definitely remember a lot of the different, like even I was gonna mention kimonos too,
yeah,
with the
yeah.
Asian like fusion, if you will.
Fusion, that's the word
And
thank you.
yeah.
That's the word I was looking for. Yeah.
And African like kente cloth, and yeah, I definitely remember that. And like prints were definitely a big thing then too, aside from like the structural differences in clothing. But yeah, those prints I can definitely remember being very prevalent.
Yeah, prints. I remember. Speaking of prints, they were all over. Like even Trapper Keepers had like
Yeah.
had the crazy prints on there.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. That like these kids don't know nothing about a trapper
No.
keeper. If I try to tell my son what a trapper keeper is right now, he'd be look at me like I was crazy.
Yeah.
But I remember that was like what you had to get
And
going
they
to
were
school.
like
It was
so
like,
cool. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah. You
yes.
wanted
Like
one. Yeah.
Lisa Frank. I had to get my like Lisa Frank print, that all that neon print
Yeah.
and unicorns and everything. And I had that trapper keeper. I remember having that one year, Lisa Frank
Nice.
trapper keeper.
That's awesome.
I got excited about that trapper keeper.
Heck yeah. They were like the in thing. You wanted it,
Yeah.
because then that's how people knew you were cool.
Yes, exactly that.
Whoa, he's got a Trapper Keeper.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but you're right. So prints were like everywhere. I mean, I remember
Mhm.
the shorts that my mom would pick out for us to wear sometimes. They were like blue with like some sort of crazy like orange and yellow print all over it. It's like colors that just, I mean, don't put those together, guys. But
I know.
but they did.
And yes, there it's um this is a funny story. My mom just recently actually told me about this at Easter when I was over there. It's not like she picked a print for me when I was maybe about 6 months old or something like that. And so it was like, your typical 80s picture and background, and like with the forest in the background for your backdrop. And I had on like a brown and beige flower print outfit, and my grandmother hated it and was so mad at my mom that she did that, because she just wanted me to have on pink and like a frilly dress.
Yeah.
And my mom just really loved this brown and orange. I think there were oranges in it, but she just really liked this like earth tone outfit, and it was very cute. But I remember she was just telling me that like her mother did not appreciate it.
Well, and speaking of, I mean, I remember, I mean, even just for kids, like the little girls had a lot of, especially on like picture day, there was a lot of like frilly collars and, that kind of thing. I guess, what is it? It's almost like would it be called a jumper?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, a lot of that kind of stuff that you would see, especially on picture day, and of course the boys would have some of them would have sweaters, and the sweaters were crazy thick and awful and comfortable.
Well, they have to have a collar, like a shirt underneath too.
Yeah.
We layered a lot when we were younger. I feel like we layered way more than than nowadays. I don't feel like that's happening as much. But I remember you have to at least have on two shirts or you're not going outside.
Yeah. We like wore all the clothes. Yeah.
Yes. And speaking of the like ruffles, I remember I can remember this picture. I can picture it. I just don't know where the picture is. But my family, my mom had us dress alike going to an amusement park. And I guess we were too young to object. I don't know how old I was. It was for like our school picnic. So the amusement park that's around here is called Kennywood.
Oh, okay.
And so we were going for like the school district picnic, and we had on the school district shirts. We all had the same shirt on, but all had on blue jeans. And so I had on a blue jean skirt though, with a white lace frill on the bottom. And I'll never forget that.
Nice.
I'm like, I cannot believe you had us walking around the amusement park looking like this. I'm sure I wasn't upset in the moment. I look pretty happy.
Well, speaking of jeans, I mean, denim, like super popular, the jackets, you had to have like the acid wash jeans with the denim jacket. I mean, that was like the thing,
I forgot about acid wash. Yeah, acid wash jeans, and it would have a matching denim jacket to go with it.
Yep.
Denim outfits were definitely a big thing then. Like having like the top and bottom matching, like was definitely a moment in the 80s for sure.
It's the craziest thing to me.
Yeah. Because it's funny because I do have a couple like jean jackets now. And if I have on jeans, like pants, I won't wear my jean jacket because I don't want it to look like I'm trying to be an outfit.
There you go. My wife does the same thing.
I'm like, I can't wear that one. I'll have to grab another jacket.
I've heard her do that before. I'm like, what? It's cool.
Okay,
It's
I'm glad
fine.
it's not just me. I'm glad it's not just me.
No, she does the same thing because she's asked me about it. I'm like, yeah, it's fine. I mean, of course, I remember from growing up, but no, apparently it's not fine. So,
It's not fine.
so she's smarter than I am there. But I mean, nowadays, I'm so happy just to wear a t-shirt and jeans anywhere that.
Me too.
I wore suits for like 3 years in a row, almost every day. I'm a t-shirt and jeans guy now. I mean,
I'm thankful that like I work for the Postal Service, and I
nice.
work at a sorting facility. I've been there for it's going on 15 years now.
Oh wow!
And we don't have to dress up for work, so most of my clothes do just sit in my closet. But like my nice clothes, because on my normal work week, I just can be very casual, which I do appreciate that. So on the weekends, and sometimes I try to dress up.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, that's like us at the store, because I work at a Christmas store. In the Pro Lights division, we just have a polo that just says, DW Pro Lights and our little logo on it. And that's it. I get to wear jeans or whatever else I want to wear, and it's amazing.
Yeah, I do like that. I like, even though like, I really like clothes and I like fashion a lot. But it is nice to not really have to think too hard about what I have to wear to work every day.
Yeah.
So there's that.
like save that for going out, like when you go out, that's when you want to go, get all done up and everything. But for work, I mean, I'm done with that, and I love it better. It's
I agree.
Much easier.
I agree.
You can get up a little bit later in the morning, and because you don't have to stop and pick anything out.
Right. Pick from one of these the piles of t-shirts in this drawer, or in the piles of stretch pants over here. And then that's what I wear to work.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Just a couple more trends I want to bring up real quick. The sunglasses.
The shutter
frames,
glasses,
the shutter glasses. Those were very popular. Same thing with the asymmetrical ones. They would like hot pink, and they would like come out at weird angles,
like pointed out your face, like out like maybe about 4 inches away from your face.
Something like that.
It had to be very like exaggerated points. For the sunglasses, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. It was those were interesting. Moon boots were something that always were around as well.
Yes.
I'll be talking about those later.
Yes. Those shutter shades were so interesting because they didn't do anything.
I don't know what the point of them was, but
I don't know. It's like it was just fashion, but it made it hard to see.
Yeah.
But I don't know, it was just, I guess, fashionable.
I guess we had a pair. Pizza Hut, I remember, used to sell a few with like their personal pan pizzas. It was kind of like a kid's meal back in the day, and and I just remember getting a pair of those. I had some orange and yellow, again with these colors, some orange and yellow asymmetric glasses, and I had some like neon green shutter glasses, and you're right, they were like super hard to see out of.
I remember that very vividly, but I can't remember like how that got to be so popular. Like, I don't know where it started, but I definitely remember it lasted a while into the 80s.
And I've been trying that
didn't bleed over into the 90s.
No, that definitely didn't. And I've been trying to do research on it. Like, I'm trying to figure out like the history of it, and I couldn't find anything. So finally I just gave up. But
when I looked up shutter shades, because I thought about it, and I looked that up, and the only thing I saw on it mainly was that they said that Kanye West tried to bring it back in the early 2000s. I was like, oh, well, that didn't work.
No, it sure didn't. Yeah. He's done a lot of things very well, but that's not one of them.
That isn't it. No, that wasn't it at all.
No, sorry, man. But I mean, just these random trends that I really enjoy. I miss some of them, not all, definitely not all of them,
not all.
But thoroughly some of them just really bring back the nostalgia. And so, speaking of nostalgia, I gotta ask, like, what would you say would be your happiest moment with like fashion in the 80s?
Well, I would say one thing that we haven't talked about that I wanted to bring up is
Okay.
the leg warmers.
Oh,
So
yes.
leg warmers, that goes into my moment that comes right to mind because leg warmers were very popular then, and I also, when I was young, I used to dance, so I had a lot of leg warmers.
Nice.
So that really is like thinking of leg warmers, even though I don't like I can't remember if I wore them as fashion or at all. I know I wore them for dance.
Right.
But I remember it makes me think of that time when I was younger. It's just like kind of brings back memories just from my childhood. And it just makes me like good memories. So it's just one of those things like kind of the first thing I think of is leg warmers when I think
Leg
of like
warmers,
happy
yeah.
moments.
Well,
Yeah.
and that reminds me also the tights had like the little stirrup kind of things, and
Yes.
I don't know why. I mean, I guess to hold them in place better. I don't.
They would have it would be so they wouldn't like slide up. So they
Ah,
would
okay,
it would
that
keep
makes
them
sense. Yeah.
staying down. Like yeah, it would keep your pants down so you have the stirrups and then you wouldn't have to worry about them riding up.
Oh, okay. Functional.
Yeah.
But that disappeared because I don't
Yeah.
recall seeing very many. I mean, even when I've had to buy tights for like my daughters, I don't recall any of that kind of thing, except
Yeah, it was
specifically
I
like for
remember it
dance or whatever. But
maybe and I remember more of like the I feel like I had some leggings like that with the stirrups. Like maybe in my like even maybe into the 90s, like early 90s when I was going into middle school. But yeah, and then we would have you remember scrunchy socks?
I do, yeah, yeah.
So like the scrunchy socks, I remember we used to stack them and have like different color socks. And so I remember
Nice.
wearing those. So that does kind of remind me of like the leg warmer trend,
Yeah.
even though it wasn't leg warmers. But yeah.
So for me, I think it's got to be the neon. I just that's like everything. As soon as I see neon, it reminds me of that whole decade. The clothes that my mom would pick out for us. Just everything about it.
Yeah.
Especially at like Easter time, we always had like hot pink or like lime green shirts with like crazy colors on the shorts, and of course we all matched, so everybody knew who we
Hmm.
were. Like, oh, there's and because we never really fought, my brothers and I, they used to call us the Brady Bunch. Uh, so
I didn't fight with my brother either.
well,
I
thank
never
you. That makes me feel better.
we never fought. I had this conversation with my mom because one of my friends was talking about how her and her brother used to fight all the time
Yeah.
and like literally like fight, like throw blows.
Oh
And I'm
wow.
like, wow, like I never and then so my coworkers were having this conversation where they were talking about how they fought with their siblings. I'm like, my brother and I never fought. I can't remember us ever having a fight.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, well, I think we fought, but never like that. And I'm
Not like
pretty sure it
that.
was very rare because I only
Probably
remember
just
like
arguments.
one or two. Yeah, exactly. Just a little
Yeah.
argument here and there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so for me, it would definitely be the neon and having all my brothers and just dressed the same.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good memory though. That's
It
a good
is,
memory.
yeah. I mean, it's funny when you think about it. At the
Yeah.
time, I remember, especially the middle one, because he's the one that always wanted to like pick out his own clothes more than I was glad that I didn't have to do it. I was just like, hey, it's right there, cool. What do I want to
Right.
do? Okay, cool, I'll do that. And it wasn't until later that I wanted to pick out my own stuff. But like he right away, very early on, was like, no, I'm doing this. And of course, he
Yeah.
lost. He lost, but
Right.
Hispanic mom,
He
it's like,
tried.
no, you're not getting your way here.
Right. He tried though. He said,
He did
I
try,
might as
yeah.
well try.
Yeah, yeah. But that definitely brings me to my favorite part of the show. Now, normally this is where I do a segment called "Gag Me with the Spoon," but
Okay.
there's not really a whole lot of speaking, or oral kind of things with fashion. So
Hmm.
I decided to change it up a bit. We're going to do a new segment I like to call A, 2, and D, where we
Okay.
pick our top three, let's say least favorite
Okay.
things about 80s fashion.
Okay. Okay.
So you're pretty lucky because we're not, there's no votes going on here, so I'm just going to send you some stickers anyway, but so you'll just get some free stickers without having to do anything for it. But as a guest, I'll let you go first. Just kind of tell me like your top three like weirdest, craziest fashion trends of the 80s.
Okay. I would say my top, I'm gonna I don't know what order you want me to go in. My top,
Whatever order you'd like. Yeah.
the number one is probably the shutter shades. Because I don't get it.
Yeah.
Mostly just because I don't get it. Other
Like
it's it's just like, okay, we can't really see, and they're not shutting out the sun, and I don't know. It's like what you put on if you're just going to be sitting down and not moving around too much.
Yeah.
um, other than that, I would probably say like Fringe is like the other one that I thought it was hard for me to pick three that I didn't really like, even though I'm not really like the hugest fan of everything 80s. I still appreciate it. So yeah, that was pretty much all I could think of.
That's okay.
I had those, and then I couldn't think of a third.
That's all right.
I'm like a slave to fashion. I couldn't like pick against it.
I understand. Yep. No, I know what you mean.
Maybe I don't know.
That's kind of how I am with music. People, they'll say, "What don't you like?" It's like, well, there's like a couple of things here and there, but mostly I like pretty much everything. So I totally get it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was hard for me.
Yeah. For me, it wasn't that hard. So my moon boots, of course, were just odd.
Oh yes. Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and it literally came up because they saw some footage of like an astronaut and was like, "Oh, that's kind of cool." And so they just started using rubber to, talk about their boots and make these new boots. So it's like, okay, rubber boots, whatever, that's fine. So that one, the shoulder pads, I didn't quite get, but that's because I'm a comic book guy, and so for me, a powerful women, just their shoulders were they didn't use shoulder pads, because there was like Wonder Woman kind of showed me as a young boy that they don't need shoulder pads. So the shoulder pads I never quite got. Not that I don't mind them now. I mean, you get some really strong statements with it, which I kind of like.
Yeah.
But at the time I was like, no, that's not cool.
Yeah.
And then the other one was all the ruche, like at weird angles. Cause I mean, maybe it's because I've only really seen it like on the sides, like maternity stuff, like on maternity shirts. So just seeing it like going all the way through a garment was, and especially at like diagonals, that kind of, that was interesting to me.
Yeah, I could see that. I do. I like it if it like complements my figure. Basically, like if they use it in a way that kind of, helps me out, make me look a little like slimmer or something. Like if there's a reason for it, I'm here for that. But I get what you mean though. I'm here with you on that.
Right on. But it does make me wonder. So G.I. Joe, they taught us that knowing is half the battle. So what would you think is the other half?
I would say the other half is that things don't go out of style. So knowing that things don't really go out of style, because as they go out of style, they're probably going to make it back around. So I would say, as far as fashion is concerned, that just knowing that if it goes out, it's going to come back, and you can do whatever you want with fashion. Make it your own. Everybody did show your personality with your fashion choices, and it can't ever be wrong.
Nice. I like that. That's way better than mine. Mine was if knowing is half the battle, the other half is just using red as a neutral.
Oh, yes, though. And I would say, as far as neutrals are concerned, one thing that we said on our podcast before was that animal print is the new black. Nice. So because I see animal print a lot, and so I feel like animal print can go with a lot of colors, and you don't realize it until you see it with other colors.
Yeah.
So yes, but red too. I really love red, so I like that.
Well, and it's my mom's favorite color, so
oh, great.
So I think she'll be all right with that.
Yes.
Charlyn, it's been so much fun talking with you.
Yes.
What do you want to plug? Tell me about your show.
Well, first, thank you so much for having me on the show. I want to tell you, I feel like a real YouTuber and a real podcaster now because you invited me on the show. I feel legitimate now because I'm on your show. I want you to know that.
Okay.
But our podcast is called Fashion Speaks Podcast. We are exclusively on YouTube. And we were thinking about bringing it to the podcast apps, but there's a visual element that we have. So it really, its place right now is on YouTube for the time being. But yes, you can look up Fashion Speaks Podcast on YouTube. And I do the podcast with it's me and my cousin, Jamita, and we just talk fashion, all different trending topics that could be going on in the world, and we will make it fashion. And that's what we've been doing. And we'll watch runway shows. And yeah, so yeah, I've been having a really fun time with it. And thank you for allowing me to plug that here.
Yeah, for sure. And where else can they find you? Like on social media? Or...
Okay, on social media, my personal page on Instagram is forever_Char. And on Twitter as well, I'm at Forever Char. And the Fashion Speaks Podcast is on Instagram as well. And it's just at Fashion Speaks Podcast. And also on Twitter at _Fashion Speaks.
Nice.
So yes, follow me there. I'll be letting you know whenever we upload new episodes, and we upload every Wednesday, but I always post and let you know that our new episode is up.
Nice. Yeah, I try to do every Tuesday, but some weeks I'm a little lazier than others.
I get it. Trust me, I get it.
So sometimes it's Wednesday or Thursday, but eventually it'll get there. But
right. Sometimes life happens, and 1 week we did have to push it back one day. But life happens sometimes. We're doing this for fun.
That's right. So... Yeah. So if anybody wants to pay me, no, I'm just kidding.
Right. Listen. Right. But you want to pay him, he is available. Available for all promotions.
Yep. I'll take it. That cash. But again, thank you so much. It was a lot of fun going down memory lane and seeing some of these different, out there designs that were kind of cool, but also coming back around.
Yes. And that's the fun part about fashion for me.
Nice. And on that note, I'm going to end it by saying 3 cheers for easy pieces, energized by mixed matched plaid shirts and print vests, then set off by skating shorts. And check us out on our social media pages, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And if you're feeling like we're in a million bracelets, leave us a review on iTunes. Not only does it help us reach more people, but you also get a free sticker. Now, don't forget to check out our bonus episodes. Later, dudes.
Hi, this is Manny from Feliz Christmas, Merry Navidad, the bilingual, multilingual Christmas podcast. In our podcast, you will hear about foods, traditions, how this 2020 Christmas will be interesting, especially from 6 feet away, and many more new surprises. Join me on the road to Christmas, along with many guest hosts from other podcasts from the Christmas Podcast Network. You can listen to us on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Radio Public, or just search for us on your favorite podcast platform. You could also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at FCMN Podcast. Or visit our website, fcmnpodcast.com. Feliz Christmas, Merry Navidad.